Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. This episode is a follow-up to the previous episode of the podcast, in which I discussed phenomenological conscientization. Here, I will discuss reflexive conscientization, a topic I briefly mentioned in the previous episode, but not sufficiently to my satisfaction. And so I will go ahead and elaborate upon it more than I did before. What do I mean by reflexive conscientization? Well, first, the notion of reflexivity is not a word that we hear all the time unless you happen to be in academia. So as a retired professor, I heard that term a lot. For example, there is a term called reflexive sociology. And I don't need to get into what reflexive sociology is because that would take a long time and it's not really relevant to what I want to talk about here. But reflexivity in general refers to the idea of taking an action which then returns to the one who takes the action. So say I act on something, and then that action comes back and affects me. In other words, it is reflexive. It goes from me to something else and then bounces back to me. I guess you could think of it in a way as like playing handball, where you throw a ball against the wall and the wall comes back and hits you in the head. Uh, that may or may not be a good metaphor. I'm not sure. But I think that explains my point. Reflexivity is an action which comes back and affects the one who took the action. Okay. So, what I mean by reflexive conscientization is a kind of conscientization which is taken upon the individual. Because generally, when we think of conscientization, we think of critical conscience and consciousness raising of others, right? Of others, not of oneself. I mean, the idea of raising one's own conscience and raising one's own consciousness may superficially even appear somewhat silly. I mean, how do you do that? What does that mean to raise your own conscience or consciousness? Well, what I mean by that is the following, that I figure out what I am missing. If you look at the diagram behind me, you can see Roy Bhaskar's diagram of the dialectic, where you have absence, any absence, something that is missing, absensing the absence, meaning eliminating that which is missing, and then the result of that process, or the synthesis of that process, is transformation. So that's how Roy uh, understood or explained the dialectic in a way that was consistent with critical realism. Very good approach, and one that I use all the time. And back when I was teaching, I would show a version of that diagram to my students and try to explain it to them as best as I could. Okay, so if I find something in me that is missing, and I can tell you there is a lot in me that is missing, and I suspect that, well, without being presumptuous, that we can all find things in ourselves that are missing. I'm sorry for being so presumptuous, but I think that's probably accurate, meaning nobody is perfect. Kind of another way of saying that same thing. Nobody is perfect. We all are missing something. Nobody has everything. We all wish we had certain things that we don't have. For example, say I smoked, which I don't, but say I smoked cigarettes. and I really, really want to stop smoking. I have known people like that. From what I understand, having had no experience with it, I can't testify to it. But what people have told me is that no matter how hard they have tried to stop smoking, they have been unable to. Now, I don't know what that feels like since I have no direct experience with it, but I can empathize with what they're saying. I can find similar things in my life, things that I have fallen into, I guess commonly called ruts. And when you try to get out of a rut, it can sometimes be rather difficult because you have ingrained habits, ingrained behavior, and trying to find a way to change that behavior, especially without any support, can be rather difficult. So, yeah, I can relate to it on that level, not on the level of smoking, not on the level of drinking, because I have never been an alcoholic and I have never smoked a cigarette once in my life, but I can relate to it in a very general sense. So, um, when I look at myself and say I am, God forbid, a member of the KKK, I could never be a member of the KKK. If you've been watching my podcasts, you know how foolish that statement is. Let me pick even something even more foolish. Say I was a neo-Nazi. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? A guy from a Jewish background who was associated with the Bund, which is basically Jewish anti-Zionism, being a neo-Nazi. Obviously, that would be impossible. That is a contradiction in terms. But for the sake of this discussion, let's say that I was a neo-Nazi. I don't know how, but let's say I was. And I start thinking, I am really unhappy with that. I want to figure out a way to change it. Tell you a story. This is a true story. It comes from the reader that I used in my social problems class, at least one of the editions of that reader. And it was a fascinating account of a guy who was a neo-Nazi who beat up an Orthodox Jew. What happened? This neo-Nazi went to prison. The Orthodox Jew decided to befriend the neo-Nazi. I don't know if I could do that. I hope I could, but I don't know. But I'm proud of this guy for having done that. So he went to the prison regularly, and the two of them became close friends. Yes, they became close friends. And what happened? Well, I don't know how long this guy was in prison for. I imagine it was more than a couple of years, though. But when the guy got out of prison, take a guess on what happened. Okay, time's up. The guy converted to Orthodox Judaism. Yes, the former neo-Nazi, well, by that time, the former neo-Nazi converted to Orthodox Judaism. If you know anything about Orthodox Judaism, you know that generally, not always, but generally, it is very difficult to convert to Orthodox Judaism. I have no idea why it's difficult. If it were up to me, it would not, but I'm not an Orthodox Jew. I don't practice Judaism, so it's not for me to make that kind of decision. But isn't that amazing? That's really amazing. So here you have a guy, a neo-Nazi, and he beat up this Orthodox Jewish guy. This Orthodox Jewish guy became friends with the neo-Nazi by visiting him in prison. And somehow the neo-Nazi became convinced that his neo-Nazism was wrong. He was extraordinarily apologetic. Now, Sometimes I have wondered whether the guy converted to Orthodox Judaism as a kind of way of repentance, whether the guy was really sincere. I have no way of knowing that, and I would rather assume that he was sincere, even though I have no way of knowing that. It may have been an act of repentance for all I know. But from what I read in this article, he became a devout Orthodox Jew. So whatever it was, that's what he became. He absented the absence, right? The Orthodox Jew went, converted him, well, not intentionally, but unintentionally, converted him to Orthodox Judaism just by being with him. And this guy was transformed. And so you see all those things on that chart there. Absence, the guy being a stupid neo-Nazi, the absenting of the absence, the guy converted to, of all things, Orthodox Judaism, because the guy that beat him up visited him in prison, and then the guy was a transformed man. That would be an example of how the process of conscientization would work. Now, let's take the Orthodox Jew who was beaten up out of the equation, which would allow it to make more sense in the context of reflexive conscientization. So there's no Orthodox Jew around. There's nobody who gets necessarily beaten up, although I guess that could happen, but let's assume that that was not the case. But let's take that same guy, or maybe a different guy, whatever, but somebody who is a neo-Nazi. And he begins reading, for some reason, about Orthodox Judaism. He begins studying the Tanakh, the Old Testament. He begins studying the Talmud, which is a commentary text written by rabbis on the Tanakh. And he becomes convinced that he should be an Orthodox Jew entirely on his own. There was nobody with him. Nobody got beaten up in this case. This was entirely a reflexive activity. So by reading and studying the Tanakh, by reading and studying the Talmud, he decided that he wanted to be an Orthodox Jew. So he converted to Orthodox Judaism, which was the absenting of the absence. And then again, as a result, he was transformed. So there you have a case which really kind of fits squarely with the notion of reflexive conscientization, because we can all do that. It is something literally that we can all do. When I came up with this idea, and I did come up with it, for all I know, somebody else might have come up with it too, but I didn't get it from anybody else. I literally made this idea up. Whatever is the source of this, whether it's me or somebody else, but in my case, it is me. I thought about situations in my past when I had a really difficult time in my life. Now, fortunately, I have never been a bigot. Never been a bigot. I have never hated people based on their race, ethnicity, religion, or anything like that. I may dislike certain religions, which I do, and no, I'm not going to say which ones they are, but there are a couple of religions which, as a sociologist of religion, as somebody who has studied a vast array of religions, that I don't like. That is true with almost every sociologist of religion I know. Inevitably, you're going to stumble upon some religion that you don't like. And I can think of two cases of that with me. But I didn't hate them. I just didn't like them. And I thought that why would somebody want to be a member of that religion. Yet, I have had friends in both of those religions, and I liked both of them. One of them thought that because I was friends with her, that I was a good candidate for converting to her religion, and I didn't know what to say. I mean, what do you say to somebody like that? Do I say, well, no, I can't convert to your religion. Why? Because I hate it. No, I love you. You are a really nice person, but I hate what you believe in. Obviously, I can't say that. That'd be stupid. Really? Really stupid. Really, really stupid. So I would never say that to someone. But I came up with a compromise. I said, well, I already belong to a religion, and the religion I belong to is vastly different than yours. Now, did I tell her what that religion was? No, because generally I don't. I generally do not talk about my religion. Now, there are cases where I will, but those cases are few and far between. And so she had no idea what my religion was. In fact, she asked me, and I said, well, I would rather not discuss it. Why I'm like that, I have no idea. That's just a trait of my personality. Maybe good, maybe bad, but I don't like talking about my religion. But I just told her that, gave her a reason. I have a religion. My religion is not the same as yours, and therefore I am not a good candidate to be a member of your religion. That satisfied her. That provided her with an explanation. I did not have to say how much I hated her religion, which I do. I guess I think it's stupid. I think her religion is stupid. So maybe hate is not the right word. Maybe the fact that I look down on it because I think it's idiotic, which I think if I told you what religion it was, you might understand what I'm saying, but I'm not going to do that because I might have viewers who belong to that religion, and I don't want to offend anybody. And I never, never, as a sociologist of religion, attack somebody's religion. I mean, that is a total no-no for most sociologists of religion to attack a person's religion or even to mention disparaging things about another person's religion. We simply don't do that. We are not debunkers, or at least most of us are not debunkers. And those who are should not be debunkers. That is not our job. Our job is to study religion. If you want to be a debunker, fine. But then don't practice the sociology of religion. Be a debunker. Okay, so I don't like debunkers. I have known some. I have known some of these so-called new atheists who basically are debunkers of every imaginable religion, and they are not even aware of how stupid the new atheism is. And okay, that's fine. I'll say the new atheism is stupid because it's not a religion. It's a belief system, but it's not a religion. Why is it stupid? Because, as I once explained to my students, there is no such thing as religion. When I said that, I had one student who I think was a new atheist. I think, or at least was on that track. He got really, really angry. Now, he didn't yell at me, but I could tell him seeming like that. And then he got up and left the room. Now, he came back the next class, but he was really pissed off at what I said, that there is no such thing as religion. I mean, that's true. Religion is a name. Religion is a category. Uh, Religion is whatever you define religion to be. And based upon your definition of the word religion, you will either include or exclude certain belief systems from that category. That's true. In sociology, we have one major definition of religion, but we also have other definitions too. And there are some definitions that would include a lot, and some definitions that would only include a little. One thing that I have pointed out about many new atheists is I have mentioned ethical culture. Ethical culture, which is a secular religion started in the late 19th century by Felix Adler, the son of a Reform, other parts of the world, liberal Jewish rabbi. He did not want to become a rabbi. So he started ethical culture, which is kind of like Reform or liberal Judaism, but without the Judaism. The basic idea is that we all need to be ethical. Some ethical culture people believe in God, some do not, but there is no concept of God per se in ethical culture. Instead, the notion is that we learn morality from nature. We learn morality from nature, which is what a lot of atheists believe. That's often their way of debunking what they think of as religion, not aware that there is a religion which believes what they believe in. So when I say that to some people, they find that to be very, very disconcerting. And I can understand why, but I feel an obligation to point that out as a sociologist of religion. If people have a misconception that religion is a thing and not simply a name or a category, then they are going to hate things that they shouldn't hate. So there we get back to reflexive conscientization. Once people properly understand the nature of knowledge, the nature of religions, whatever I want to define as religions, it becomes impossible to say, I hate religion, because you realize that there is no such thing as religion. And once you do that, you have practiced a kind of reflexive conscientization. In other words, you have effectively liberated yourself from, I guess, prejudice against the word religion, which is really what the new atheism is. It's prejudice against a word. So I suppose it's a kind of, I don't know, linguistic realism, which is kind of foolish, treating words as if words are real. Now, I don't know if people like Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and folks like that would have agreed with what I just said, but and maybe they have a way of responding. I don't know, because I've never had a conversation with any particular well-known new atheist. Maybe they would have a way of debunking what I said. Maybe, I don't know. But however they would try to debunk it, would that change my mind? I doubt it. I doubt it. So once we understand things in a better way, which is something we all can do, we can strive to have better knowledge, better consciousness, right? And a better conscience, a better moral compass. Then the bigotry goes away. And one no longer hates religion, because religion doesn't exist. And one is open to the possibility that a person may practice a religion that may even be acceptable to a new atheist. And in fact, ethical culture is one such example. There are others as well, but ethical culture is the one that comes to mind. Unitarian Universalism might be in second place, but not quite as much so as ethical culture. So that's what I mean by reflexive conscientization, turning the idea of conscientization, or the praxis, I guess, of conscientization reflexively, meaning upon one's own self, and basically exploring the areas in one's own life in which one holds to certain oppressive ideas. or prejudicial ideas, and literally dissecting them, exploring the reasons why they literally do not make sense. And bigotry itself does not make sense. I mean, there's no reason to be bigoted against anyone, really. If someone is bigoted, to me, that is a sign of, I don't know, immaturity. I mean, why be bigoted? Um, One can disagree with someone without hating them, without being bigoted against them, without being prejudiced toward them. Sure, that's fine. But bigoted against the person? No. Even bigoted against the idea of religion. Because what happens then, if you're bigoted against the idea or the name or the concept of religion, then you end up projecting that, to borrow a psychological term, which I generally don't do, but I will in this case. You end up projecting that upon individuals who practice a variety of things that you might call religions without even knowing what they are. And a lack of knowledge is a very dangerous thing. The more knowledge one has, the better equipped one is to answer the various questions which occur in life. And life is full of questions and does not have very many answers. And so we need to ask the right questions in order to find the answers, because the answers are often difficult to achieve. But finding those answers can be a result of reflexive conscientization. And in the end, one will become a more emancipated being. For the time being, this has been Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.